Welcome everybody, it's great to have you here with us today as we look at Trechoro and we look at our preview of Trechoro that looks at SysML2. Today we're looking at an analysis case, and this is part 2 of a video. We started off by creating the case and looking at attributes, parameters, subjects and objective. And we've done a few basic things, but in this video we're going to expand upon our previous example and add a few more details. My name's Scott Hebbard. I'm joined today by Stephen Maguire. Welcome, Stephen. So what aspects are we going to add to our diagram today to help fully build out this case?
Thanks for the introduction, Scott, and always a pleasure to be here. Yes, we're going to look at adding some more attributes. We're going to look at detailing what the scenario is in terms of the waypoint or the journey that this vehicle's on, and a number of other things such as a calculation definition. So let's just make a start. What we're going to do is put some more attributes in. Now we had added some attributes. If I select the case there, the fuel economy analysis case, in the features window underneath the diagram there, you can see we've got a number of different attributes at the moment. The brake specific fuel consumption, the BSFC. If you're not familiar with the automotive industry, that acronym may not be familiar to you, but we've got calculated fuel economy, distance and scenario. Remember that the parameters were the in parameter was the scenario and the out parameter was the calculated fuel economy. Let's go and add a couple of more in here now, and one of the things we'll add is the time per distance average. So we'll put that in. We'll worry about detailing what they are in a little bit. We need a couple of other ones. We need this FA one, which is the fuel consumption per distance under best or optimal conditions. So again, we'll leave that out. We would, of course, be putting in documentation for these, but in this short video, we'll leave that up to the audience to do. And we're going to have an F_B, which is this fuel consumption when the vehicle's idling. So we've got a number of different things now. You see they've popped up now. The attributes have popped up inside the attributes window, and notice that the calculated the scenario and the calculated fuel economy ones haven't popped up. So again, this is an important aspect of modeling in SysML2 and with Trechoro, is that what I'm going to do is I know that my scenario is an input one, and I can know that because when I go over here, it's got a direction of in. So what I can do though is right mouse click on this and say add to diagram. And what that's done is it's put up a little connecting here, saying scenario there, right? So that's an input parameter into our analysis case. Now with the analysis case selected again, let's go calculated fuel economy, add to diagram, and again we'll move that one around as an output.
And the arrow's changed now because that's clearly out.
Yeah, and if we have that selected, you can see that the direction in the properties window. So when people are modeling, Scott, there's a relationship between these windows. We're selecting things either in the project browser or in the diagram, and then we're looking at the windows that are around that. So the properties window over here with the element and the metadata and things on it are giving us more information about it. So like we said, when we select this parameter, it comes up and we can set that direction. That's all important. So let's do a couple of other things. We need to create an item definition, and this one is the time it takes to travel a particular distance. So let's go and have a look now at our definitions and distance per volume. We've got that there. Let's put in our references there, and let's add another reference. Now, if you notice this one here, it's we go and look at the type of it. It's a reference usage. So we can just put that either onto the diagram or directly in here. So we want a reference usage there, and we'll put that in and we'll add that, and we'll give it a new name using the F2 key there. I'm going to put time per distance in there. So that's something we're going to need in our calculations. Now, just before we go on, if you look over here again at our toolbox, we've got calculation definition and calculation usage. So this is an important part of SysML2 that they've kind of raised this up. It used to be kind of, in SysML 1.5, when you're doing parametric analysis and things, you could, put in some equations like your famous, Newton's second law, F equals ma, kind of thing. But to bring you back to physics that you might have learnt at school when you were 15. But here we will create a calculation definition as well. But before we do that, let's explore a couple of things. Let's explore this scenario. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a data type onto this diagram, and we're going to get that from going over to our CurML. And remember, the CurML is the thing that underpins, it's the sort of mathematical basis for these languages. And I'm going to go to CurML and collections, and I want a map there, or an ordered map actually. So let's get an ordered map and put that one onto there, and we've put that onto our diagram. So we've got the ordered map there, and now we need to create an attribute definition for a sampled function. So this is kind of a little bit of SysML2 syntax. So if you're not familiar with it, then that's no problem. It's a new thing for most people in the world. So we're going to create an attribute definition now. Again, going off to our toolbox, we can go attribute definition, and we'll put in a name for that. I could have typed that directly in as it was going there, but I didn't. And we need to create a relationship which is essentially a subclassification relationship. So this is a subclassification of that one. I can see how I can move that along, and the alignment kind of works for me there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to create a relationship there using the quick linker, and it's a subclassification relationship. So now you can see that if I'll make these the same size, so I can just multi-select them there and say, using the layout ribbon and the alignment panel, same height and width there, and then align them left. A little bit of alignment there. You can see it makes the diagram much tidier. I might just move these ones over a little bit. I can just simply grab these and lasso them and move them over. Now, I want to get another thing in here, which is a scenario, and I want to get another attribute def, and I want to make that a subclassification of that one as well. So I'll move this one up a little bit, and this is another attribute definition. This gives us a sort of a level of indirection from that. So an attribute definition, and let's put that one on. And again, I'll just go straight in this one now and type in scenario. So that's kind of like what our scenario is. And again, I'm going to get it a subclassification there. And again, I'll do the same thing and make all these the same size, and align them on the left there. So, and I can also, with the three of them selected, I can make them, space them evenly down. So that's kind of fortunate. I've kind of lined up with my scenario. So this thing is the scenario here, and what we need to do is create a feature typing relationship between this. So this scenario here is typed by that sample function. So I'll drag that over there, and it's a feature typing relationship, not to be confused with type featuring, which are confusingly two different things. Now you can see that syntax there, the triangle with the two dots underneath it. And again, we can just line these guys up, just using my control key and my up and down arrows there to line that up. Notice now that this scenario now has got a slightly different label on it. It's a type scenario, and scenario is its name. So now we need to do some other things. So we need to start describing our, a definition of our scenario there, and it's all about waypoints. So let's go and put in an attribute now, an attribute usage, and so now we've got an attribute usage there, and let's put that one in there, and let's call it waypoint. So that's there, and we need to now create a relationship between that one, and it's a feature membership relationship. As remember, if you know your SysML to syntax. It's a feature membership of that one. So put that in there, and we've got that relationship. Now our waypoint is going to have a couple of different things. And again, I'm just going to use our friend, the alignment one there, and we need to give this this attribute some attributes. So let's have a look at that, and we'll see what we're going to do there. So one thing, have a look, get this right. We need to put in an elapsed time. So we'll put into our waypoint there. Let's click off that, a new attribute of elapsed time, and we're now going to get also position. So position, and we'll be.
And all of these waypoints are used to calculate the fuel economy. Yes.
Yeah, that's right, Scott. So in this one here, we've got this attribute of waypoint now. You can see that. But what we need to do is we need to describe the fact that there can be, more than one waypoint. So let's do that. And with waypoint selected there, we'll come over here and we'll see our upper bound and lower bound. So we can type into this. So we want one, and this is quite small. It might be something we might change in production release. I'm going to put in an asterisk there. So, and that's saying that it's an infinite upper bound. And you see what's happened there, Scott. The waypoints have got one ... star there, meaning that there can be any number of waypoints. Yeah. So let's go in here and do a couple of things. Let's look at this. For the screen to refresh, and we're going to look at IceCube base. So we're going to set in a duration, and let's do that now for this one. So we'll go into our elapsed time there, subsetting that. We'll choose our libraries, and it's a SysML, and it takes a little bit of time to refresh. There's a lot of things in these libraries. Got IceCube base, and let's go duration there. Put that one in. And we need a distance one as well. So let's put that one in as well. Just going to refresh that screen. Might be a minute. Might do that one in a little bit. Actually, we'll leave the distance one out for a minute, and we'll look at that a bit later. So we've sort of made some progress here. We haven't defined this in an infinite amount of detail, but you start to see the picture that what we're looking at. We've got all these these waypoints are part of this journey that we're going to analyze. So now let's go and create a calculation definition. So we'll do that over in our model again. And we've got our KRML thing there. We'll close that down because we're not using that at the moment. And let's, under our analysis model, let's create a calculation definition. So under this analysis model, with our waypoints there, we'll just fuel economy analysis. We'll create in here a calculation definition. So again, we go to our toolbox, and we case definition, but we need calculation definition. Let's just put that into the model, and analysis model. I think scenario field. I think that's where we'll put that one there. Drop it down, and we'll again use the F2 key and give it a name. So now we're looking at our calculation. This is the first time we've done this, Scott. Before, let's have a look and see what we need to put into our calculation definition. And I'm just going to reference that. So these are going to be references. So let's put our scenario in there as a reference. So again, I'll put that onto the diagram actually, Scott, so people can see it more clearly. But it doesn't need to be on the diagram if you don't want it to be. You can just leave it there. Now we want to put in some references. So again, we choose the particular type of feature that we want, and it needs to be a reference, and we're going to put in a scenario. So that's going to be input to our something scenarios. Spelled that correctly. And let's put a type in there, and we go into our model and we again select typing. So let's have a look here and go to browse. We need to close all this stuff down for the minute. And there's our sample, and there's our analysis model, and there's our scenario. So we're going to type it by that. So we've already defined what that's about. The other thing we need to put in here is the time per distance average. So let's do that, and that will be a subsetted one. So again, we'll put that one in there. Now we need to subset that against our reference that we created earlier. So again, that will pop up, and under our definition references, time per distance. So this is a common pattern in the using Trechoro, and in fact, doing models with SysML2, that you're creating some things before you need them. It's kind of a sensible thing. It's like you're getting ready for things, setting some things up first. So I'm going to choose that time per distance there. That's a subsetting relationship, and that's all kind of fine. So now I can look at this. Have a look here, and we can look at our time per distance one there. And let's have a look and see where we might be able to use this one. So let's have a look at our calculation in here, and time per distance calculation there. Let's what I need to do is to reference that thing, that calculation in our model here under this one here, and we're going to go into this time per distance average here, and we need to put that into the value there. So our calculation was the average time per distance, and I think that's right. It should be average travel time per distance. I think it should be. Yeah, there we go. See, the highlighting has done that work for us.
The color change once you got it right.
Yeah. So we would put the scenario in there as well, but I'm just going to leave it like that for the moment. So you can start to see how all these things are lining up now. We've got we've got our fuel economy analysis. We've got this brake specific fuel consumption. We've got the normal fuel consumption, the FA. We've got the FB, which is the idle fuel consumption. We've got our scenario defined with these waypoints, and the fact that there's this kind of series of waypoints that are making up our scenario, and they've got elapsed time and position attributes there. And now we've created this average time per distance calculation definition. So Scott, there's a lot more to this in the tool, and the tool's got all the capability to continue this example on. But in the interest of not making these videos too long, this is enough for people to get started and to understand the sort of basic sort of structure of how you're going to set up a analysis case. And remember, there are other different cases, verification cases and use cases in the SysML2, but we're looking at this particular analysis case, and we've set up these as parts of the analysis case. So remember that we have, the important thing is what's the objective, and so we've got an objective defined, and you can see that in the compartment. What's the subject? Well, it's the four-wheel drive utility vehicle that's the subject, and that's a part usage. So that isn't a particular or a generic vehicle. That's a specific configuration of a vehicle. We've got our parameters that are just saying, look, into this case, we've got a scenario coming in, and then we've got this calculated fuel economy coming out, and we've got the attributes that are needed as part of our fuel calculation, and then we've got our calculation definition here that is using those parameters inside. Yeah, so the TPD, the time per distance average, there is in that in the calculations there. So look, like I said, that's what we've covered. We'll leave it there and leave it up to the audience to continue on and completely fill out the rest of this model.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Stephen. It's been good to see how it all comes together and how to develop up an analysis case from scratch, all within Trechoro. To our audience, thanks for joining us today. You can have a look at other videos in this series, either through the Sparx Systems YouTube channel or using the list of Trechoro videos that we have available. And as always, if you have any questions about Trechoro, you can reach out to Stephen using the LinkedIn credentials that are listed in the video description below. So thanks, Stephen, once again for your time and effort to show us a SysML2 analysis case in Trechoro.
Always a pleasure, Scott.